Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Steve Ferrucci. If you don't know me, I'm the chair of the English department. And we've got a lot to celebrate tonight. You can kind of look around and see all the good things we're going to celebrate. So we're going to jump right into it. Before we do that, English Night, it will come as no surprise to you, takes a lot of work to organize and to set up, and then also to kind of respond to crowds as they come in, and we get more and more chairs in. And so none of that's possible without Miranda Lau, our department administrative assistant. So it's truly the case that the English department would just cease to exist without Miranda, right? She keeps us all together. So thank you, Miranda. We have quite a few scholarships to award tonight, so you can read about them in your program. I'm going to invite the awardees to come up to the podium when your name is called and stand awkwardly somewhere over here while I read some good things about you. I'll then hand you a fancy certificate, and we'll pose together for an equally awkward photograph. Family and friends, if you're here to support them, are more than welcome to come up, which will only extend the awkwardness just a bit longer. It'll be a wonderful thing. Right? So it's all good. To begin with, it's my pleasure to announce the winner of this year's Connie Campo Award. The Constance Campo Memorial Scholarship was established in memory of Connie Campo, who is a longtime member of the English department staff. The scholarship is for a non-traditional student who has demonstrated excellence in their studies and is awarded to someone who has shown sensitivity to gender and diversity issues. This year's recipient, Dana Arroyo Infante, and Dana, if you want to come on up while I'm talking, if you're here. Yep. And here comes the awkward, we're going to look at you while I read good things about you. So, is described by one of her professors as an outstanding student in my writing poetry course, in which she wrote compelling poems inspired by her experiences as a young Latina coming of age in early 21st century America. Her work consistently probed essential questions related to racial, gender, and class identity and social responsibility. Her commitment and serious approach to the course raised the bar for her classmates. Please join me in congratulating Dana as this year's Connie Campo Award recipient. Dana, yes. Our next award is the Alexander Sandy Taylor Memorial Scholarship. This scholarship was launched by family, colleagues, and friends of Sandy Taylor, a scholar, Eastern professor, and publisher, following his death in 2007. The scholarship is awarded to English majors with preference given to students who show an interest in poetry. This year's recipient is Jasper Galuzis. Did I say that right, Jasper? Yeah, I did. Okay, good. Good. I practiced for like hours. All right. One of their professors had this to say: "In my time working with Jasper, I have watched them produce polished and sophisticated poems that have captivated audiences in a variety of settings. Jasper's work interrogates accepted norms and argues for new, more complicated ways of looking at the world and for more just ways of living within it. They write with an urgency, vulnerability, and intelligence that commands attention and respect." Please join me again in congratulating Jasper as this year's Sandy Taylor Scholarship recipient. The next award, the David and Janet Phillips Endowed Scholarship, was established in 1990 by Donald Phillips in honor of his parents and their commitment and longstanding association with Eastern. David Phillips taught in the English department at Eastern for 28 years. The scholarship is awarded to an excellent student who is either an English major or a theater major or somehow connects them both together. This year's recipient is Xavier Garcia, who can't be here tonight, but we should still clap because... Of Xavier, one professor wrote, his essays focused on questions of gender, sexuality, power, authority, and identity. They are themes he addresses in his dance, choreography, and performances as well, finding resonances in how the body is seen and expressed in a variety of contexts. It was this mix of creative and academic that culminated in the last assignment of the class, a poetry chapbook. Here, Xavier's gifts emerged even more prominently. It was an aching, beautiful collection that turned the journey of his first semester back at school after years away into the kind of lines that linger in your mind long after reading. I will make sure that Xavier gets his certificate, don't worry. Right. Our penultimate award tonight is the Dr. Celia Catlett Prize in English, and this was established in July 2019 by Celia's daughter, Catherine Anderson. Dr. Catlett taught at Eastern in the English department from 1972 to 2001. The prize is awarded annually to the best capstone project by a senior English major. This year, the Catlett Prize has been awarded to Colin Morrison. Colin is currently working on a novel called The Shift, a work of fiction that explores how corporate control and environmental deterioration will someday negatively impact our lives and relationships. And one professor called it simply fantastic. Right, so Colin. Our final award this evening is the Emergent Scholar in English Studies grant. This grant was established by Dean Carmen Sid prior to her retirement in 2021 to support promising student scholars in their pursuit of English studies. This year's recipient is Maya Gbula. Maya can't be here either because of the snowstorm this morning. She had to go to work late, and corporate said, hey, you don't come in till late, you get to stay late. So that's where she is right now. But her work examines the intersection of psychology, sociology, and technology in understanding the rising trend of self-diagnosis, particularly on social media. Her work explores how algorithm-driven platforms create echo chambers of medicalized language, influencing individuals' perceptions of mental health and fostering the widespread adoption of labels. She interrogates the implications of these practices on identity, authenticity, and societal attitudes towards mental health. I know she wished she could be here. And by the way, if that doesn't sound like an English studies kind of paper, it's because English studies is amazing and we do everything here, right? But anyway, I know Maya does wish she would be here. So maybe another round of applause for everybody tonight. We do amazing work in the English department. I gotta tell you, like every other department, I don't know, whatever. We're good, right? All right, so at this point, this is fun for me because I simply get to invite Dr. Alison Spicer to come up and then introduce and begin the Sigma Tau Delta induction ceremony. So, Dr. Spicer.
Hello, and thank you all for coming. We're delighted to induct 39 students into Sigma Tau Delta, which may be a record in my 10 years as advisor. So good on you, this particular class. I am also here to invite you to our Sigma after party. After English night ends, Dr. Kiriko and Dr. Donahue's classes put together a zine, and they need your help to make it pretty. All the craft supplies are in the back of the room, and we're going to be in Student Center 217 with the leftovers and fresh beverages. So please come craft with us after the induction. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce my president and historian who are going to do the induction. This is Olivia and Brooke.
President Olivia, I have the honor of presenting to you, to our current members, and to our faculty, the 2024 candidates membership in the Alpha Epsilon Delta chapter of Sigma Tau Delta.
Thank you, Historian Brooke. Please read the names of the candidates. Candidates, please rise as your name is read and remain standing.
Gabriella Beams, Taryn Beisel, Charmaine Basquet, I'm sorry, Madeline Bowen, Shannon Carbonell, Juliana Concepcion, Sean Michael Chrissy, Gianna Cruciani, Caitlin Dalby, Jenna Davis, Leah Elizabeth Davis, Sadie DeCoster, Emily Fielding, Natasha Frisch, Ian Harrington, Alex Hollister, Olivia Longo, Anna Miller, I can't tell, Megan Alicia Morin, Chelsea Newton, Cameron Parent, Alexandra Raúles Ramirez, Reese Simatowski, Evan Sinistera, sorry guys, Hayden Smith, Marielle Anelli Stankovucci, Paige Swartzel, Taylor Thompson, Julia Trainer, Caitlin Rose Becky, Cooper Way, Victoria Worth, and Cheyenne Zigavelis. I'm sorry. I really...
Inductees, you are going to be joining us in Sigma Tau Delta, the International English Honor Society, partaking in our mission to distinguish undergraduate students, graduate students, scholars in academia, and professional writers who are recognized for their accomplishments in linguistic or literary fields. Sigma Tau Delta promotes interest in literature and the English language on local campuses and their surrounding communities, fostering this discipline of English in all its aspects, including creative and critical writing.
Membership in Sigma Tau Delta is an outward recognition of personal accomplishments. Each of you has been recommended as a person of superior scholarship with enthusiasm for the humanities and therefore worthy of this honor.
Henry David Thoreau once said, "It takes two to speak the truth, one to speak and another to listen." As members of Sigma Tau Delta, you understand the importance of communication, the value of listening, and the significance of expression. You have proven yourselves capable of comprehending the English language and of pursuing the truths found in works of literature, rhetoric, and linguistics. Being a member of Sigma Tau Delta and the English studies community as a whole requires that you continue these efforts and prepare yourselves to take the truths you have found here into the world, sharing with others your joy and appreciation of our discipline.
My friends, are you ready to take upon yourselves the obligations of membership in the International English Honor Society and its local chapter? If so, answer, "We are ready to become members of Sigma Tau Delta."
We are ready to become members of Sigma Tau Delta.
Since you have indicated your readiness, we will read together the pledge and the motto of Sigma Tau Delta. Would all current members of Sigma Tau Delta please stand and join us? I shall endeavor to advance the study of literature, to encourage worthwhile reading, to promote the mastery of written expression, and to foster a spirit of fellowship among those who specialize in the study of English language and literature. And remind me my international motto, sincerity, truth, design.
Sigma Tau Delta is honored to recognize you as esteemed members. The International Headquarters presents to you the outward signs of your induction. Your membership certificate and pin, and the English department presents you with a cord to wear with your regalia with your commencement. Please step forward now as you hear your name called and receive these symbols of your membership.
Gabriella Beams. Taryn Beisel. Charmaine Bousquet. Madeline Bowen. Yeah, we got it, guys. Shannon Carbonell. Juliana Concepcion. Definitely. Sean Michael Chrissy. Gianna Cruciani. Caitlin Dalby. Jenna Davis. Leah Elizabeth Davis. Sadie DeCoster. Emily Fielding. Natasha Frisch. Ian Harrington. Alex Hollister. Olivia Longo. Megan Alicia Morgan. Morin, sorry. I read it wrong. Chelsea Newton. Cameron Parent. Alexandra Ruales Ramirez. Okay, I'm so sorry in advance. Reese Simatowski. Simatowski. Okay. Evan Sinistera. Okay. Hayden Smith. I'm so sorry again. Muriel Anelli Stankututi. UT. I'm so sorry. Stan Kuchich. I'm so sorry. Paige Schwartzel. Yeah. Can you say it into the microphone, please?
That was Muriel Stankovichuti.
Thank you so much, Dr. Donaghy. Taylor Thompson. Julia Trainer. Caitlin Rose Vici. Cooper Way. Victoria Worth. Okay, I'm gonna do my best. I'm so sorry, guys. Cheyenne Zvinglas. Did I get it? Oh, good. Should we recognize the names that are not here? Okay, so. Inductees, I now declare you to be members in full standing of the Alpha Epsilon Delta chapter of Sigma Tau Delta. We welcome you into the society. Congratulations. I know.
Dr. Frucci is coming back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I can't read lips.
And you all can sit down unless you want to stay, right? So at this point in the evening, I'm going to invite you to head over to the table there and grab something to eat. Please, while you're eating and talking, go over and talk with the folks who have poster presentations over there on the other side of the room. If you're an award winner, please come back to the front of the room and we'll have a group picture. And also the inductees and all of the Sigma Tau Delta members will also can go over there, right? So award winners over here, you all over there, everyone else over there, all right? All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and reconvene. Go ahead and grab some food and then take a seat, and we'll move on to the next component of the evening.
Say that with Mike.
No, that's why I leaned over. All right, so I'd like to invite Dr. Ken McNeil to the podium. He's going to introduce the scholars from his senior capstone, Contemporary British Post-Colonial Literature. Is that right? I think so. All right, yeah. Dr. McNeil? Yep.
All right. Hello. Where did everybody go? My name is Ken McNeil, and I'm here to introduce the presenters of my senior seminar, which is called Contemporary Post-Colonial British Literature. All right? I think it's been a great journey. The students, I think, in the class have come up with some really interesting and innovative projects. And if you want to, you can read more about them in the abstract handout, the yellow handout. That's all my students and their projects. So we're going to have 3 students today present and represent the entire class and give us some more information on their projects. All right, so we're going to do that. I thought it might be useful first to briefly kind of talk about the class, Contemporary Post-Colonial British Lit. What does that mean? I think that was a big question that all my students had when they started the class. What does that actually mean? I think the contemporary part, that's pretty clear, isn't it? Contemporary means somewhat recent. I think the students found out that somewhat recent actually could mean 50 years ago, but we tried to keep it within the last 20 years, stuff written in the last 20 years. It's also a British literature course, and the most important part about it is the post-colonial part. What does post-colonial mean? It basically means after colonialism. All right? But what does that actually mean? I think from most Americans' perspective, we really don't have a sense of what British colonialism was all about. All right? We don't really understand too much about it. So for example, like in the 20th century, the British Empire, Britain was the most powerful, the most dominant nation in the world. All right? And they controlled vast amounts of the territory in the world. They controlled something like a quarter of the entire population of the world. And they also controlled something like 14 billion square miles of territory, all right? So they were really, there's no empire, there's no country that's been as powerful as them ever, okay? But this all pretty much faded and crashed after World War II. So after World War II, Britain loses just about all of their colonial possessions, all right? The various nations of Africa and India, all over the world, become independent, all right? And Britain becomes just a tiny little nation off the coast of Europe, which it kind of is now, all right? So, but when the British Empire just fell apart after World War II, the colonial attitudes still remained, all right? The colonialism went away, but the attitudes stayed, all right? And some of these attitudes are still kind of affecting the people in former colonies, but also in Britain itself, because after World War II, there was a mass wave of immigration to Britain from India, from Africa, from Canada, from New Zealand, from Australia. So now Britain in 2024 is a very multicultural nation. All right? So that's the sort of things that we talked about in class. We talked about what was it like, the lingering effects of colonialism, how the British, they brought their language, their religion, their culture, and they really foisted them on other cultures, all right? And these people still have to live with that. So we talked about the lingering effects of colonialism. Even though colonialism is dead, it still really affects people and their daily lives. And that was pretty much what we were interested in. The conflict, the multiple and hybrid identities that post-colonial culture has created, all right? As Salman Rushdie put it famously, post-colonial is feeling that you are at times straddling two cultures, while other times you are falling between two stools. Okay, so the students did a lot of really interesting, varied analysis of the literature, and we looked at literature from many different locations. So Britain, but also Jamaica, New Zealand, other places around the world. Okay, so that's what we did. And we're gonna have three people who come up and do their presentations. But I think I'd like to, before we do that, recognize everybody who was in the class. Okay, and I'm just gonna read their names, and maybe at the end, those, if you'd like to stand up, I think I'd like you to do that. So the class was Molly Bonazzo, Ryan Borges, Jessica Curtis, Caitlin Dalby, Meg Franzino, Nicole Linner, Esmeralda Morales, Margaret Rousseau, Evan Sinisterra, Olivia Smart, Rexford Welch, and Mackenzie Wuzik. All right, so I'd like to all give a hand to them and the work they've done. All right, and now we're going to have our very first presenter. All right, and this is Margaret Rousseau. And Margaret is going to present her paper entitled Anne's Canada, a post-colonial re-examination of Anne of Green Gables.
Hello, good evening. Let me take a moment to set this up. Perfect. Hello, my name is Margaret Rousseau, and this is my presentation entitled Anne's Canada, a Post-Colonial Re-Examination of Anne of Green Gables. This QR code is for a link to the PDF of my presentation for anybody who would like to read and follow along as we go. Anne of Green Gables, published by Lucy Maud Montgomery in 1908, remains a seminal work of children's literature over 100 years after its publication. The novel relates the story of a young, imaginative orphan girl, Anne Shirley, who was adopted by the aging siblings Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert in the fictional town of Avonlea, Prince Edward Island. The novel blends the elements of a comedy and a Bildungsroman or a coming-of-age story, as Anne grows from a peculiar orphan getting into humorous scrapes into a brilliant young woman on the cusp of adulthood. The popularity of the book has traditionally been ascribed to its vibrant protagonist and humorous tone. Today, it is considered one of the foremost examples of Canadian literature and is standard reading in Canadian curricula. Due to its preeminence and relative age, there has been significant scholarship on the text, but I have found there has been limited scholarship approaching Anne of Green Gables from a post-colonial perspective. I argue using the works of Joy Alexander, S. Carly Keogh, and Marilyn Soult that the novel's relationship with geographical identity, particularly expressed through its setting, reflects a fundamentally, although not overtly, settler colonialist perspective dominant to Montgomery's era. Additionally, time allowing, I will discuss how its recent television adaptation, Anne with an E, functions as a post-colonial reinterpretation of the novel, drawing attention to the source text biases while displaying respect for the work it adapts. As a brief overview, the term post-colonial can be used both as a description of a work, either its time period or its topics, and as a lens for critical analysis. This critical analysis can discuss both post-colonial and colonial works, periodically speaking. For example, the questions, how do imperial attitudes towards colonial subjects influence this Sherlock Holmes mystery written in 1890? And how do this character's struggles with anti-Pakistani racism in modern-day London reflect persistent colonial attitudes? Are both questions that might be asked by a person conducting post-colonial analysis. My experience with post-colonialism mostly engages with the British Empire, so it is what I'll focus on, but the term could be applied to other colonial and imperial powers. Anne of Green Gables is a colonial work in terms of its period, written in 1908 at the height of the British Empire and prior to Canadian independence. I will not be so bold as to claim that Anne of Green Gables is colonial in its subject matter. It's a novel about an orphan getting a family and growing up. The British Empire is entirely peripheral or subtextual, where it exists at all. But a large element of the novel is the question of identity, especially Canadian identity, which, being so entangled with the British Empire, manifests in colonial elements. Canadian identity in the text is discussed primarily by the adults. See, for example, Mrs. Rachel Lynde and Marilla's discussion at the beginning of the novel about the hypothetical orphan boy the Cuthberts are acquiring and the dangers of taking in a strange child. Well, Marilla, I'll just tell you plain that I think you're doing a mighty foolish thing. A risky thing, that's what. You don't know what you're getting. You're bringing a strange child into your house and home, and you don't know a thing about him, nor what his disposition is like, nor what sort of parents he had, nor how he's likely to turn out. And Marilla responds, there's risks in people's having children of their own if it comes to that. They don't always turn out well. And then Nova Scotia is right close to the island. It isn't as if we were getting him from England or the States. He can't be much different from ourselves. And Rachel responds, only don't say I didn't warn you if he burns Green Gables down or puts strychnine in the well. I heard of a case over in New Brunswick where an orphan asylum child did that. From this exchange, an interesting pattern can be seen. Mrs. Lynde and Marilla appear to ascribe trustworthiness to a stranger, sight unseen, according to their proximity both geographically and culturally to themselves. Thus, according to Marilla and Rachel's outlook, a person from Nova Scotia, another maritime province, is expected to be more trustworthy than an American or someone from England, and the situation of a person in New Brunswick is accepted as probably similar to their own. This outlook of radiating trustworthiness bears significant resemblance to the imperial viewpoint of centrality versus marginality, putting London at the center of the world and the British colonies at its outlying margins. Marilla and Rachel have simply moved the bullseye to their own corner of the world, and perhaps a little ironically, have cut the empire out of it. This section above shows an insular, radiating model of trustworthiness, a simple sliding scale that spreads evenly and can mostly be dismissed as an amusing facet of Avonlea culture and Mrs. Lynde and Marilla's old-fashioned values, which Anne chafes against throughout the novel anyway. But consider this passage, which immediately precedes it. Marilla says, and you know how desperate hard it's got to be to get hired help. There's never anybody to be had but those stupid, half-grown little French boys. And as soon as you do get one, broke into your ways and taught something, he's up and off to the lobster canneries or the States. At first, Matthew suggested getting a Barnado boy, but I said no flat to that. They may be all right, I'm not saying they're not. But no London street Arabs for me, I said. Give me a native born at least. There will be a risk no matter who we get, but I'll feel easier in my mind and sleep sounder at nights if we get a born Canadian. Here we see what lies beneath community insularity. Rank prejudice and tension along boundaries of language, religion, and ethnicity. Also class, but that's a different discussion. Anne of Green Gables is interested in Canadian identity, but it's a very specific identity it portrays, focusing upon the descendants of Scottish Highlanders who immigrated to and settled Prince Edward Island and the other maritime provinces. One scholar of the Scottish Highlander settlers in the Maritimes, S. Carly Keogh, discusses how this group has been viewed historically. In Tripped Up by the Tartan, she writes, land use and land ownership among Highland settlers advanced the power structures of the settler colonists in the early to mid-19th century. Later, this enabled the Highland image of the 20th century to be sympathetically reimagined in romantic terms to enhance their standing as respectable citizens and to bolster an emerging tourism economy. I think it would be fair to consider Anne of Green Gables to be an example of the romantic reimagination of the Highland settlers that Keogh describes. Keogh further delineates the actual truth of the real-world counterparts of the people of Avonlea, at once the subjects of British colonization and its instruments, which created an internal tension in many communities in the area. But, as has been pointed out, Anne of Green Gables has no interest in the social conflict between British subject and British citizen, instead pretending that there is only Canada, completely sovereign and without any lingering past, even when this is, in fact, not historically true. There are perhaps some tensions within Canada displayed, for example, between Francophones and Anglophones, as Marilla's speech suggests, but these are peripheral to the text. The conversation I've been analyzing is prologue to the introduction of the book's protagonist. Most readers would quickly read it and move on. But it is a clear example of the kind of mentality Anne is inheriting at the end of the book. And of this inheritance, one scholar, Joy Alexander, notes, although it is not a point that is strongly highlighted, it is nevertheless important to remember that Matthew and Marilla's parents were the original settlers of Green Gables. Their father cleared the land and founded the farmstead. The timber that built Green Gables would have been from the trees that he cut down. Their mother had originally emigrated from Scotland and planted flowers in the homestead garden in her bridal days. Therefore, Anne, as Matthew and Marilla's surrogate daughter by adoption, lays claim not just to a house, but to a home, a heritage, and a country, thereby directly connecting Matthew and Marilla's legacy and Green Gables and a legacy of settler colonialism. But these passages have largely reflected the in-universe attitudes of the adults of Avonlea. It might be easy for readers to therefore dismiss Marilla and Rachel Lynde's opinions since they are so often in opposition to the protagonists. However, while the characters discuss and place value upon a sense of Canadian identity, this isn't where the novel's Canadianness is most clearly present. Canadian identity is baked into the prose, the setting, and the descriptions. First, there are the influences of the American regionalism movement, the geographic specificity, the emphasis on a rural community, and the late 19th century sense that modernity in some way threatens the bucolic pastoralism of rural life. Marilyn Salt describes life in Avonlea thusly: the pace of life is slow. Everyone knows everyone and everything that goes on. Few people are wealthy, but few are extremely poor either. There is a great deal of visiting back and forth, for Avonlea does not yet have a phone system. It could be called idyllic, certainly. It is easy to romanticize. And Montgomery's lush language makes romanticization still easier. Take, for example, spring had come once more to Green Gables, the beautiful, capricious, reluctant Canadian spring, lingering along through April and May in a succession of sweet, fresh, chilly days with pink sunsets and miracles of resurrection and growth. The maples in Lover's Lane were red-budded, and little curly ferns pushed up around the Dryad's bubble. Away up in the barrens behind Mr. Silas Sloane's place, the mayflowers blossomed out, pink and white stars of sweetness under their brown leaves. All the schoolgirls and boys had one golden afternoon gathering them, coming home in the clear, echoing twilight, with arms and baskets full of flowery spoil. "I'm so sorry for people who live in lands where there are no mayflowers," said Anne. Montgomery mixes together rich sensory detail, temporal spatial specificity, and strong personal opinion to create descriptions like this one, which is an example among literally dozens in the book. And Montgomery's mastery of imagery is vital to the novel. Salt argues it's the single most significant reason why Anne of Green Gables has endured for so long. Anne falls in love with Green Gables because it is beautiful, but so does the reader. The reader wants desperately for Anne to stay there in spite of generational divides, schoolhouse humiliations, and ugly dresses because of how Montgomery writes it. But of course, this is fiction. Montgomery conjures gorgeous scenery to set her story against intoxicatingly tempting images. but they are fabricated. Alexander writes, because of its mythic evocation of pre-industrial space, the novel's perspective is deeply conservative. It is not so in a political sense, though it is indicative of a colonial mindset and the strength of feeling of pioneers who wanted to preserve their hard-earned place and way of life. I'd like to add that the picture Montgomery paints of bucolic farmland can be directly linked to the displacement and dislocation of Prince Edward Island's indigenous people, as discussed by Keogh. So, Anne of Green Gables is a colonial text, the indelible impacts of empire lingering beneath its bright surface. But one might opine that the novel's merits outweigh any detriments. In any ways, frankly, its defects pale dramatically in comparison with its contemporaneous peers' issues. The portrayal of a hegemonic Avonlea, a tight-knit insular Scottish Highlander community, and rural Prince Edward Island means there are very few opportunities for racial vitriol or bewildering portrayals of racial caricatures. The assumption of homogeneity might be an insidious byproduct of how the imperial mindset casts itself as the eternal normal, but there's little legitimately offensive in the novel. A post-colonial reading doesn't necessitate throwing the baby out with the bathwater, as it were. It's a lens for critical analysis, not an indictment of a text and everything in it. In addition to critical textual analysis, another way to discuss a text and its values is through the medium of adaptation. The process of adaptation requires, by its nature, an examination of the text and the decision of what to include, exclude, or invent for the final product, which involves evaluating a text and its values. Anne of Green Gables has undergone dozens of adaptations, and these adaptations have even come to influence one another, as discussed by Benjamin Lefebvre. I wish to use one of the most recent examples of Anne of Green Gables' adaptation, Anne with an E, adapted by the CBC and Netflix, airing from 2017 to 2019. Anne with an E had different constraints than previous adaptations, which led to some unique adaptational choices. Of relevance to the discussion are the invention of characters like Sebastian Lacroix, a Trinidadian laborer who becomes a major character in his own right, and Caquette, a Mi'kmaq girl who becomes friends with Anne. Through these characters and their plot lines, the creators of Anne with an E effectually adapt the original text with post-colonial topics, such as the connection between Canada and the British Caribbean as British subjects, as well as the oppression of Indigenous peoples in Canada. Additionally, the inclusion of these characters and themes narratively requires an adaptational choice to make the original characters interact with challenging issues that were absent in the text, but would have been present in their historical context, such as residential schools or lynching. In this way, the show complicates the strictly romantic view of the community that Montgomery portrays, although it tends to ascribe to its main characters a very modern sense of moral and political good, in some ways leaving the text's subtextual biases unchallenged. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay.
All right. We're going to have a time for questions, but we're going to have everybody present first, and then we'll have a question session for anybody who wants to ask questions of any of our presenters. So our next presenter is Evan Sinisterra, and he's going to show us his Caribbean Poetry Library website. So Evan, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Here, let me see if I can. Minus. Boom. Okay. Like Professor McNeil had said, my capstone takes the form of a website. I actually have the entire website pulled up right here for us to look at together. All right, I made this website on a website builder called Wix. And I mean, what better way to tell you what it's all about than by going to my mission statement? Okay. These are the 3 goals of the Caribbean Poetry Library. We want to preserve all literature, celebrate Caribbean voices, and raise colonialism awareness. Finding good poetry from lesser-known authors is a challenging task in our day and age, and that task goes from challenging to monumental when searching for poetry across culture. Our site is pretty much here to say that Caribbean poetry is worth the work. These authors' voices deserve to be preserved, they deserve to be celebrated, and They deserve to be explored for the important themes of colonialism, feminism, and racism that they hold within them. Our goal is to make this literature both easy to access and easy to understand for people who aren't initially familiar with the history of the Caribbean. Let's see, I'll head back to the homepage now. And I'll show you some of the poets that we have on the site. Currently, we have, I think, 22 poems across 15 separate poets. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, you can like see which poems that they have and their names when I scroll over them here. I think that's all well and good to have them all in one place, but where the site really shines is in the poetry by region category. As you can see, we have poetry from the Dominican, Haiti, Jamaica, and a couple other places from the Antilles. Let's just start by checking out the Dominican. Here we have a brief history of the Dominican, just to let us know where this poetry is coming from a little bit. And down here we have all the poets of Dominican heritage. Let's see, let's just click on Pedro Mir. As you can see, I have a little bit of a personal history from the author to further contextualize his work. Then I have his poetry, some footnotes, and an analysis of his work, just to really make sure that the people visiting this site really understand what's going on in each piece. Let's see. We only have time for probably about one person per place, but that's quite all right. Same deal here. We have a history of Haiti. Down here we have the poets, and let's click on Virginie Saint-Pierre. We have her history, and this one is a bit unique because it is one of the few works that we were able to get the original text in French, along with a translation, and a modern translation at that. Down here we have the synopsis as usual, just further letting us know what the poem's all about. Here we got Jamaica. We got the same formula as before, history, all the poets. I think I'll show you Evan Jones. This one is unique, I think, because it is written in Jamaican Creole, which is always really fun to read. And because of that, I got a reading of his work online, and I posted it to YouTube, just so that the people visiting the site could listen to the poet read out as they read it, so that they can further appreciate the tonality of the piece. All right, let's head to the more category. This one's kind of just a category of all the little places that I couldn't find a whole lot of poets for. We have Martinique, St. Lucia, and Cuba. Here we got the histories of each place, just to contextualize everything. And down here, I think I'm going to show you Aimé Césaire. He was the former president of Martinique, actually. And that's pretty cool because he has some really, really in-depth work with a lot of metaphor and stuff like that in it. So as a poem like that, it deserves a bit more analysis, just because, there's so much going on in it. So you got a lot of footnotes, and you got a pretty long synopsis for each of his pieces, just because that's what they need to really fully explore them. Let's see. Next, I'll show you the more resources category. This is just sort of a little list of literary works that you can head to after exploring the Caribbean Poetry Library. The majority of these are written by people from the library. For example, Return to My Native Land is written by Amy Césaire, and it is a poetry book with one poem that expands the whole book. So that's pretty cool. Some of these also are just things I found while doing my research for all of these other artists that I thought deserved to be at least mentioned. And clicking on each one of these will just send you to a place that you can purchase them for yourself. Next, let's just check out the About Me category. This is something I would probably have showed you at the beginning. It has like a little bit about me. I'm a creative writing major. I'm Colombian and Spanish. I'm very passionate about poetry, all that. I have a little blurb about why I write. I am showing it now at the end, mainly because I have a poem that I wrote that I wanted to read out to you guys that I feel exemplifies why a site like this is at least important to exist in the world. Okay. It's titled, Lost, Lost is the Written Word. That's a feeling that I've often heard as a child, echoed without meaning. But with only a dozen years, it's grown into something all too real. I look around me and shudder. Plainly can my tired eyes see, lost, lost is the written word. I look to the left and find the web flooded with the brave new work of automatons. Without love, without hate, without injustice, without soul. What feeling is this meant to create when the stories of our fellow man are pushed to the sidelines for cobbled together, stolen word amalgamate, ideas without meaning, poetry without emotion, lost, lost is the written word. I look to the right and find books in Florida schools yanked from curriculum, replaced with the dogma of rotten orange and oil barons. Reading nothing like me, nothing like my brothers, my sisters, nothing like anything someone with a heart would write. Art flung to the wind for corporation, lost, lost written words. Then, somber, I look towards the love of my life and smile, thinking of marriage, a white picket fence, some kids. But then I wonder, from where will their words blossom? From the hardy soil of computer chips and cleansing fires? Everywhere they look, they'll find nothing but lack. Lost, lost are my children's words, and I can do nothing but weep. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got, folks. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, and our last presenter is Mackenzie Wuzik, who's going to present her paper on post-colonial literature in a high school classroom. Mackenzie.
Okay, for my English Night project, I have created a lesson plan posing myself as a 12th grade teacher who teaches a post-colonial English class elective that students could have the option to take. You may be wondering, why have I chosen to connect post-colonialism with education? It is important to offer a post-colonial related English class to high school students because it broadens their ability to analyze social, cultural, and political impacts of colonialism through literature. They are able to apply these ideals towards any future career they aspire to be a part of. This class will have them explore themes such as identity, socioeconomic factors, race, effects of colonization, and more. In order to create my lesson plan, I have researched the English Common Core standards for seniors in high school based out of Connecticut. My lesson plan incorporates post-colonialism using readings, videos, analysis activities, writing assignments, oral presentations, and the screenplay My Beautiful Laundrette by Hanif Kureishi. Each day consists of a bell work question, which will require them to use critical thinking skills before class. Some questions address their personal thoughts with colonialism, correlate with previous assignments, or simply to test their knowledge. The first week is an introductory unit, which will allow my students to grasp onto what post-colonial literature really is before they dive into using works and writing assignments. It is important to teach students that post-colonialism addresses many cultural situations and can be used to see what similarities and differences there are in the modern world. Using short lectures throughout this week, we'll explain definitions, common themes, and ideals, which will assist students in understanding the content they will be using in future weeks. I have also included a short video, Post-Colonial Theory, to further explain how to look at colonial texts. This first week is designated to give important information about why we're learning this topic and use small thinking activities to step students into the colonial mindset. My second week is focused on post-colonial terminology now that students are grasping onto why we're learning about it. Learning key words such as otherization, hybridity, diaspora, constructivism, and more will take more than just a day to understand. It is important to stretch these terms throughout the week because they will be used across the remaining weeks of the lesson plan. Aside from learning the definitions of these terms, I have students watching Chimamanda Adichie's TED Talk video, The Danger of a Single Story, that conjugates the terms as a whole and how they fit into post-colonialism. For instance, only looking at something from one perspective may lead us to a misunderstanding over something that's worth looking from many different points of views. The last day of this week will be preparing my students to step into their writing processes. Now that they have experience in analyzing a colonial text of their choosing, they will write a short essay about what that text means to them and other readers. Students will continue to work on their analytical essays during week 3. Alongside of the process, I will briefly announce the play that we are using in the upcoming weeks in order to understand post-colonialism as a whole. Using the screenplay, My Beautiful Laundrette by Qureshi will require a permission slip to be sent home for parents to sign due to some of the content in it. This play incorporates a lot of gender, sex-oriented situations, racial conflicts, and violence. My class will read the play upon knowing what it consists of, but only watch certain appropriate scenes during the weeks. I have chosen to use this play because it contains a lot of colonial themes, shows a lot of hardships colonies face, and allows students to compare and contrast this time period to where we are today. To lead us into the play, we will also use week 3 to discuss some of the authors they have chosen and the meanings behind their writing pieces. This will allow students to see the key ideas such as culture being more appreciated today, influences on heritage, and how society unfortunately still struggles to deal with immigration. Week 4 and 5 are solely focused on My Beautiful Laundrette. I will have students spend a lot of time reading the script and analyzing it as we read together or when they have assigned pages for homework. They will focus on the setting and plot building and character traits to get us started. As we dive deeper through the play and notice more conflicts, that is when activities like character analyzation, theme relations to other texts, and Qureshi's potential goal when writing scenes comes in. My Beautiful Laundrette consists of a lot of different conflicts, themes, tones, and ideals that are important to understand, especially because it represents post-colonialism in a strong way. Week 5 is when I have the class start taking what they have learned from the beginning weeks and applying it to what they are reading. For instance, addressing some of the places Qureshi included in My Beautiful Laundrette and how they impact the characters would connect with finding identity and breaking cultural norms. To finish off the reading of My Beautiful Laundrette, we will be spending a day watching particular scenes in the film so they are able to compare what they have read. Throughout these 2 weeks, I will ensure each student is comfortable discussing the topics in this play it consists of, and explain how crucial all of these ideals are for people throughout the post-colonial time period experience the same conflicts. Upon finishing My Beautiful Laundrette, we'll have a quick recap question for bell work about the film parts they have watched. Afterwards, I will move them into the essay writing they begin for the week. This essay will have them use a play and film sources to write about the theme that spoke out the most to them. Each student has an opportunity to use a character of the play along with a moment that supports their theme they are choosing to write about. Their goal is to write an argument on why they chose the theme and how it can be looked at as the most important. Since this is a larger essay, using the weeks to flesh out ideas in a rough draft is important. Providing persuasive sentences with enough evidence that connect post-colonial ideals is the goal students are working towards. Week 7 will conclude the basis of my lesson plan. This week touches on some last ideas with post-colonial literature under a creative approach for students to share what they have learned. I picked out 4 different poems that they're able to analyze and discuss with their peers for one of the days. Dark August by Derek Walcott relates to the setting and culture of many pieces around the readings we've read across the semester. The Mask by William Yeats holds the theme of true identity and culture surrounding people. The last 2 poems, Whale Dreams and Many Native Women Missing by Lorena Goodison, discusses the theme of gender along with nature versus human in the world. These poets are very influential during this time, and their pieces capture important ideals under post-colonialism. To finish off this week, I have my students making a mini presentation. They will choose something having to do with post-colonialism that spoke the most to them and explain to their classmates why it's worth learning more about. They are able to choose from a wide range of subjects, such as an author, an important event, or something as broad as culture. Giving the students the ability to choose what they are interested in learning about at the end of the unit will broaden their minds to diving deeper into post-colonialism or even other important time periods. Reviewing these 7 weeks, you will hopefully notice that I have slowly progressed my students into understanding what post-colonialism is, important aspects that come from it, and how to analyze literature from this time period, as well as applying what they have learned to assignments. Under the Common Core standards, I have made sure that my choices touch upon the students' reading, writing, listening, and speaking, along with creative skills. I hope these reading activities I've included in my plan allow you to see the knowledge of my students will get learning about post-colonialism.
All right. We do have a little bit of time for questions, if anybody has any questions. Before we do that, I just want to tell everybody in my class, when we finish, don't go anywhere, okay? All right. Questions? Any questions for anybody, any of the presenters today? Is that a question? Okay. No? Okay. If there's no questions, I guess I'll let the chair have the podium.
So this is the easy part of my job, to thank you all for coming tonight, to celebrate again the folks who completed the senior seminar. I know the seminar is often a very long, challenging year, especially with a professor like McNeil. But it sounds like some amazing work really happened in that class and some insights made. So congratulations to you. So thank you all for coming tonight. If you're interested, the zine decorating party is across the hall in room 217. Great fun will be had there. You should not miss it. So please go there. Otherwise, good luck with your final exams if you've got them, or other final papers. Have a wonderful break. If you're graduating this semester, congratulations to you and good luck. Take care, and I'll see the rest of you in the spring. All right? Good night, everyone. Thanks.